All right, so in goal 2.6, we're still solving. Our whole super goal 2 is about solving, but this time we're solving absolute value. Now, we did a little, I'm pretty sure we did, a little bit about absolute value back in goal 1, where we simplified stuff, okay? Remember that absolute value represents a distance. So my answer, not the answer to my question, but the answer to the problem, is always going to be positive. So when I take the absolute value of a positive 6, I get positive 6. And when I take the absolute value of a negative 6, I get positive 6. Absolute value is indicated with those parallel, we didn't talk about it, my mistake, we haven't talked about this, vertical lines with something in the middle of it, okay? So with that, okay, vertical parallel lines, something in the middle of it indicates absolute value. And when you simplify it, and what I mean by simplify it is you actually take it out of the absolute value bars, okay? It becomes positive. If it was positive, it stays positive, and if it was negative, it becomes positive. So, 2 different questions here gave you the same answer. 2 different questions gave the same answer. 2 different questions gave the same answer. That's important for what we're doing, because we are going to be solving. When you're solving with absolute value, most of the time, as I have underlined, you will get 2 solutions. Sometimes your solution is 0 or no solution. So once in a while, not very often, you don't get 2 solutions. But when you see absolute value, the first thing I want you to think of is 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. I'm going to have 2 answers, okay? Most importantly, in red with an exclamation point, remember when in strategies class you talked about what makes something important in notes? I changed the color and I put an exclamation point. That would mean that it's important, okay? Isolate the absolute value first. Isolate means to get the absolute value term all by itself, okay? Now, to get the absolute value all by itself, you're going to use what you already know from solving. So if I want to get this x by itself, I'm going to add 7. Bless you. So I have the absolute value of x equals 28. Once the absolute value is all by itself, we can get our solutions. This one's on the simpler side because in the absolute value there's just an x. So, x is either 28 or x is a negative 28. Those are my 2 answers. So once this absolute value gets by itself and is equal to something, I set x, plain x, equal to that number, and then I set x equal to the opposite of that number. And those are my 2 solutions. 2 answers. Isolate the absolute value first. Next question. I'm going to divide by 9. This is 9 times. I'm going to divide by 9. So the absolute value of x equals 8. So that means that x, what's in that absolute value, is 8, or x is negative 8. And actually, I should write the word or there. I won't take off for it, but really, you should. So once the absolute value is by itself, I take it out of the absolute value, and I send equal to 8, and then I send equal to negative 8. What am I going to do first to get this x alone? Just like you did in previous lessons. Josh? Before that. Minus the 7 first. So minus your 7 first. So 2 absolute x equals 4. And then my next step to get that x alone is to do what? Yes? Divide by 2. So just like you did on the assessment you got back today, And I'm pretty sure you're not going to see, let me double check myself, I am 100% sure. You won't have any fractions with these, okay? So, the absolute value of x equals 2. That means that x can be 2 or x can be negative 2. This next question tends to look a little confusing, but if I were to change it to look like this, without the absolute values, you would probably know what to do first. Okay? This is the same thing. You're going to do mathematically, you're going to do the same thing whether this is your equation or this is your equation. So all your rules of solving are staying the same. So just like you can add and subtract x's, you can add and subtract absolute value of x. So 5 of them minus 2 of them give me 3 of them. Plus 4 equals 22. So I can add absolute values of x just like I can add plain x. So up here, I would have just taken 5 minus 2 is 3. Same thing. And now it works just like this one over here. Get that x alone. Subtract your 4. So 3 times the absolute value of x equals 18. And then divide by 3. And the absolute value of x equals 6. Once that absolute value is by itself like this, I set it equal to 6, and then negative 6.
Would Mr. Kirshen and Ms. Damian's homes please come down to the gym? Mr. Kirshen and Ms. Damian.
Okay, questions so far? I'm going to change it up a little bit. When there is more than just x, like all the ones I've done so far have just been a plain x, nothing else, you have to set up your 2 cases to get your solutions. So these answers are not going to end up 5 and negative 5, 8 and negative 8, 2 and negative 2. They're going to end up like 8 and negative 2, or 9 and negative 1, or negative 4 and 12. Okay? They're not going to end up opposites. That's only going to happen when, let's shrink that up, when all of them are just x, 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 x. So this is your method for setting up your cases. I apologize, I didn't type this in my math program. I just typed it with my laptop keys. And so these are all absolute value questions, even though it looks weird. If I would have typed it in my math program, it'd be better looking. Okay. Okay, so on the first one, what we're trying to find is what makes this a positive 4 and what makes this a negative 4. Because remember, when I take the absolute value, I'm going to get that answer. 2 different things. So how do you get that answer easily without having to think through it algebraically? You take what you see. I'm going to go back to blue just a minute. You take what you see and just drop off the bars. There's 1. So that's going to be one of my answers in a second. To get the other answer, you take the x minus 2, whatever is in those absolute values, and you set it equal to negative 4. So you change the sign, make it negative. So they're asking, what can this be? What makes this 4 and what makes this negative 4? Because that's going to be my answers there. Now, you'll notice that it's not just x. Up here, I did that. I said x is 2, x is negative 2. Here, I have to take and solve now. So I'm going to add 2. So I have x is 6. And I'm going to add 2. And I have x is negative 2. So again, my answers are not going to be opposites of each other. Same thing in my next example. X plus 4 is by itself. Absolute value is alone. So I take my absolute value expression, the x plus 4 equals 5. Just drop off those bars and that's exactly what you write. Oops. And then for my other answer, I set it equal to negative 5. And then I solve each one of them. Subtract your 4, and x is 1, and subtract your 4, and x is negative 9.